Hey there, and welcome into the Reno You Know. My name's Steve, and today we're at the south shore of Lake Tahoe on a very cold and snowy winter day. Why are we torturing ourselves like this? Well, a little later we're going to head over to the Hard Rock Hotel Casino, whose rock and roll theme echoes the events that happened there 50 years ago. This being a historically themed channel, today we're going to explore the historical connection between Northern Nevada and Elvis Presley. The state of Nevada was almost a second home to the king of rock and roll. Starting in 1969, he would go on to play over 600 shows at the International in Las Vegas as one of the highest paid entertainers in Las Vegas history. Every one of those 600 plus shows sold out. He sold out every show! The location of the second highest number of shows was right here at what is now the Hard Rock Hotel Casino, but back in the day this was the Sahara Tahoe, which was built in 1965 by the Del Webb Corporation. In the summer of 1971, Colonel Parker booked Elvis for a 2-week gig here, which was sandwiched in between two larger runs down at the International in Las Vegas. Colonel Parker elected to have him do a residency here as opposed to sending him out on a tour of multiple cities. Elvis would return again in 1973, 1974, and 1976 for a total of 5 residencies and a total of 98 shows, every one of which sold out. Elvis's performances were electric, especially in the earlier runs, and people made great sacrifices and traveled great distances to see him. Fans and Elvis's people say that the crowd just went bonkers when he came out on stage, and he kept the energy level high throughout the night. The Sahara would change the procedure for getting tickets over the years as they attempted to deal with the volume of people that wanted to get in. There was no internet or Ticketmaster back then, and sometimes the shows got overbooked, which led to some very vocal protests by some very unhappy people. Sometimes you could only get tickets by calling, and sometimes only by mail, and sometimes you just had to show up at the box office. We made it up to the 15th floor here at the Hard Rock, which again was the Sahara Tahoe back in the day. And this was Elvis's floor. They blocked off most of this floor for him, and his room is the one that was behind me, 1501. And the rest of this floor was occupied by band members, crew, his entourage, the Memphis Mafia, and the only other people that were allowed up here were invited guests. Elvis was always down for a good charitable cause, and while he was here, he chose to get behind the Barton Memorial Hospital in South Lake Tahoe. The Barton Memorial folks would come down and sell souvenirs and merchandise during the shows, and they were able to keep all the profits. One of the ladies present said that Elvis almost built their intensive care unit. We are back in Reno at the Reno Sparks Convention Center. This facility opened in 1965, the same year as the Sahara Tahoe, and it was originally called the Centennial Coliseum in a nod to Reno being 100 years old at the time. We're here today because, and not many people know this, Elvis played Reno. He did it only one time, and it was on November 24th, 1976. And for any hardcore fans out there, you can search around the internet and find a very low quality recording of that entire show made by somebody that smuggled in their tape recorder. There's still a couple more connections to Elvis here in Reno. Let's check them out. So how exactly did the king get to Northern Nevada? Elvis leased planes to go almost everywhere, and there was usually a separate plane for him, for the crew, for the band, and sometimes the colonel. Depending on the size of the plane, sometimes they could land at South Lake Tahoe, but most frequently they just landed right here in Reno and rented cars to drive up to the lake. In 1975, Elvis purchased his most notable plane, the Lisa Marie, which of course was named after his daughter. He spent 3 times what he paid for the plane in a major remodel. The Lisa Marie was too much plane for the small airport in South Lake Tahoe, And you can see from these photos in Reno that the Lisa Marie was landed here for the shows in Tahoe in the spring of 1976. The Lisa Marie is on display at Graceland if you go, and you can go on board for a tour. At least you could when I was last there in 2004. I'm down here at Sierra Sid's Casino and Truck Stop in Sparks, and I did some Google research and found that Sierra Sid's had a collection of John Wayne's and Elvis's firearms. So I thought I had to come check that out. So I came down, I walked around, I didn't see anything like that. And I went to the gal behind the bar and I said, "Hey, can I see that collection?" And she says, "I'm sorry, that all got sold off during the pandemic." So unfortunately, I won't be sharing that with you, but we'll keep searching. Something else that connects the King to Northern Nevada is in this building right back here. Let's check it out. I'm here at the National Automobile Museum near downtown Reno, which houses over 200 vehicles that were owned by Bill Harrah, who was the founder of Harrah's Hotel Casinos. Mr. Harrah was an avid collector, and he at one time owned over 1,400 vehicles. And the car you see behind me was one of them, a 1973 Cadillac. This was owned by Elvis and given to him as a birthday gift by his father, Vernon. Elvis used this as his personal vehicle for a few months, and then he gave it away to his karate instructor. Elvis owned over 100 Cadillacs in his lifetime, and he famously gave a lot of them away.
So I lived next door to the Prims, which owned the Prima Donna Club, and it's Reno, Nevada, so they're a casino family. And so they knew I was an Elvis fan, and they said, "Do you want to go see Elvis?" And I was like, "Well, of course." And so I was probably 10, 12 years old, I'm not sure how old, but we went up to Lake Tahoe. At that time, it was called the Sahara. We went into the showroom, and back then, you just had like a general admission seating, and when you got up to the front of the showroom, the maitre d' would ask you where you want to sit. And so, unbeknownst to me, because I was a kid, you know, the dad slipped him probably 20, 30 bucks and said, "We want a nice booth, eye level with the stage, something comfortable." And that's where we ended up. We had like a nice booth, just eye level with the stage. And then during the show, a lady would come around with a camera, or ladies, and take your picture. And then, so there's a picture of me with their parents and both my friends, obviously, and my eyes were half closed because it was only a one-shot deal. And Elvis came out and did the show, and it was thrilling, of course, because I'd never really seen a live show at that point. That was really my first musical show of any kind. And then I don't know how much later it was. It seemed like it was only a few months, maybe it was a year or so, but he was playing up there again. So we were literally, our seats were right here and the stage was right there. So we were like, from me to you, Elvis. So that was super cool. And then during that show, he handed out scarves. He had these white scarves. They didn't have initials on them or anything, but Charlie Hodge would hand them to him, and he'd wipe his sweat and then go hand it to some woman down front. And for whatever reason, they gave it to me. So I was like thrilled I had an Elvis scarf. And then a couple years later, like an idiot, I gave it to some girlfriend I had, and God knows what happened to it after that. But
all right, thanks for hanging out with us with this longtime Elvis fan. One of the things that always fascinated me about his story is, how did this almost impoverished young man who grew up in the projects of Memphis, Tennessee, turn out to be an international superstar and an undeniable legend? It's just food for thought, and hopefully you've gained a renewed appreciation. I'd like to thank Joe Crine, who's the co-author of this book, Elvis at the Sierra Tahoe, for letting me use it as a reference. Google it and pick up a copy. It's a great souvenir. So if you like what you're seeing here on this channel, please subscribe. It's a lot of work to put these all together. I love doing it. Your subscription just gives us even more encouragement to keep these episodes coming your way. So as Harold Smith Sr. from Harold's Club always said, I'm with you, and thank you very much.
We're caught in a trap. I can't walk